At the time of the Boudican revolt, the Roman army was not based in one place. It was actually dispersed. Suetonius was up in North Wales. He had with him the best part of 2 legions, which was actually only half the army in Britain. There was a legion in Peterborough, the 9th Legion. There was another legion, the 2nd Legion, which was right down in the West Country, either in Gloucester or more probably Exeter. So in other words, when the revolt broke out, Suetonius was in the situation where he only had half his army with him. The 9th Legion had already tried to salvage the situation in Colchester, had been ambushed, dispersed, driven back to Peterborough, to its fortress at Longthorpe. So the situation was desperate. Suetonius knew he had to get down and meet Boudica sooner rather than later, because if he left it, Boudica would have had an opportunity to have gone round to other tribes, enlisted their support, and increased the manpower at her disposal, and it would have made the job of Suetonius all that more difficult. He knew that if he was going to win, he had to win quickly.
With Paulinus mounted and rushing ahead to find out more about the situation, the rest of his army followed on behind. One of the great things about the Roman army was that it was light on its feet, and it was made up of physically fit men. Roman soldiers regularly used to march 20 miles a day. Now I think I'm in pretty good shape, and walking 20 miles in a day would probably be no problem for me. But marching in step and in full armour, carrying weapons and a shield, well, let's give it a go. I'll march a fraction of that distance, but in the same kit, to see how it feels. Hi Matt.
Hiya.
Thanks for talking to us.
No probs.
What I want to find out is, Paulinus and the Romans, they would have been rushing back from Anglesey, they would have been on the road, they would have been marching, but I want to find out what it was like to be a soldier on the march, on the move, with all the kit.
Well, the best way to do that is to wear it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yep, and I have a spare set.
Okay, so you're going to dress me up in it?
Yep.
Oh, you know what? I'm up for it, let's do it.
Good.
I donned the full Roman fighting gear. To start with, I put on a belt which held the mighty gladius sword. Then came the lorica segmentata, the torso armour of metal bands which would have protected my shoulders and chest. Next came the helmet, with its large neck and cheek guards for added protection from sword blows, and then the scutum, the iconic rectangular shield, and finally a javelin, or pilum as it was known. Well, Matt, we've been walking for some time.
You're tired, aren't you?
I'm not going to lie, yeah, and it would have been, unbelievably tough, I guess, for these guys.
This is nothing in comparison to what they actually did.
I mean, how long would we have to be marching for then on a normal day?
The Roman army, as a raw recruit, would expect you to cover 20 miles in 5 hours.
20 miles in 5 hours. That's quite a lot with all the kit, isn't it?
It's a lot considering you'd have a full pack as well. This is only half the equipment that you would be carrying.
You're joking, there's more.
There is more. You would be carrying basically a backpack on your back full of the stuff you need to survive, and a shovel as well.
Okay, and plus you're constantly under that threat of enemy coming towards you and being attacked.
Well, I mean, this is a complete culture shock to the soldiers who are used to used to Italy. It's warm. Yeah. They know that there's friends around every corner. Maybe a few bandits, but no real organised force going out to kill them.
So how do they keep order though and discipline? Got this huge force on the march.
Well, the Roman army had rather a strict penal code. I mean, deserters would be crucified, usually along a major public highway. Wow. They certainly crucified a load of deserters along the Appian Way, which was the major road through Italy. Basically as a public warning that if you desert from the Roman army, you're not exactly going to get off lightly. Stealing from other soldiers, etc., comes down very hard. And if a legion routs in battle, it's decimated. 1 in every 10 men is murdered by the other 9.
Wow. Okay.
It's basically to make you share in the guilt.
Yeah.
Because if you've murdered one of your friends, you're less likely to run away in future, because it could be you that's murdered by yours.
Of course. Yeah. So I guess it wasn't all about the honour and glory of just fighting then?
Well, of course not. It's about keeping the empire together. If you let one barbarian revolt spiral out of control, the entire empire will break apart. You've got to send a message that burning Roman towns isn't going to be tolerated by the Roman army.
After travelling for 8 or 9 days, Suetonius Paulinus actually arrived in Londinium before the rebels, but he realised pretty quickly that he didn't have enough troops to hold off Boudica's forces. After telling the local Roman population to flee, he abandoned the town and marched away to regroup his army. Boudica and her followers swiftly followed and razed the city to the ground.
Basically, the army that Boudica had was part-time, amateurish. They were very good at short-term raids for cattle, slaves, or what we would nowadays call honour killings. Unfortunately, unlike the Roman army, they weren't professional. They weren't paid a salary, and they were not a permanent standing army. They did it very much on the basis of bluster and bravado. They weren't built for a long, sustained military campaign that would last months and months and months. They would come out, they would enjoy a scrap, and then when they'd had enough, they'd go back home. Although it might have been war mad, it was unprofessional and under-equipped.
After abandoning London to its fate, Paulinus rushed up the Watling Street here to Verulamium, or its present-day name, St. Albans as we know it. The inhabitants here were also told to flee, but those that did not heed to this advice were killed in a massive attack, similar to the destruction echoed in Colchester and London before them. Like Colchester, the town behind these city walls was left in a blazing inferno. Paulinus hurried back from the south, determined to marshal the forces that he had at his disposal to face Boudica's huge army. He headed up the A5 towards the Midlands, intending to rendezvous with Legio II Augusta, who he had summoned from Exeter to join him. For whatever reason, Legio II failed to leave their base in the southwest, and after rendezvousing with his army, Paulinus now had to face the huge British rebellion, with just the men who had fought with him at Anglesey and a few other Roman units. All in all, he probably had a force of about 10,000 men. Paulinus knew he had to find the right location to face Boudica's huge army. Being heavily outnumbered, he needed to use the geography of the landscape to help even up the odds. Tacitus tells us Suetonius placed his 10,000 odd men in a defile with woods to his rear and open country without cover in front. Historians have made educated guesses that this must have been at some point along the A5 from St. Albans. The actual location that Paulinus chose, well, that's anyone's guess. Tacitus is silent, but historians have generally pinpointed the battle to have taken place somewhere along the A5, between London and Wroxeter.